Hi, friends. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to learn a little bit more about the walking classroom. My name is Laura Fenn, and I'm the creator and founder of the Walking Classroom. I was a fifth grade teacher for many years. I taught in low income areas. I started teaching in East Harlem, and then I taught in some high income suburban areas, and I've taught in many places in between. And during that time, what I realized was that although the children's circumstances at home might be different, what they were facing in the classroom was very often the same. And one of those things is that time for PE and recess was getting cut or eliminated. And the kids were inside and they were sitting a lot and they were not happy. And as a teacher, it was really difficult for me because I knew how much they needed some fresh air and exercise. But I also knew that the administration really sort of had their hands tied with classroom instruction. And it was all about, test scores and student growth and, just sort of bottom line numbers. So one day after work, I was home and I went for a walk and I had had a really tough day and I just needed to clear my head and get some fresh air. And while I was walking, I was listening to a podcast and I was learning and I was getting some fresh air and exercise. My mood was improving. And as teachers, you know that teachers never shut off being a teacher. They're always a teacher. And so I thought, wow, my kids could do this. And so literally that day I went home and I started recording some of the lessons that I would have taught to my students while they were in the classroom. And I just made these homemade podcasts out of them. And I went to the store and I had applied for a small internal grant through the PTA. And I got a bunch of MP3 players, very inexpensive. And I loaded up these podcasts that I had created. So I approached my principal and I said, look, I know I'm not allowed to bring the kids out for recess on days when they have PE, and I know I'm not allowed to take them to play kickball on Fridays anymore, and all these other things that I wasn't allowed to do with my students outside because it was all about classroom instruction. And I said, but I recorded these podcasts. It's still me teaching, but we're actually going to listen to them outside while we're walking. And my whole intention had been just to get the kids outside and get them some fresh air. I really didn't think that they were going to learn very much or retain very much, but I knew that once they came back to the classroom, they would be in better moods and they'd be ready to learn once they got back into the classroom. If they had learned anything while we were out walking, that was gravy, but I didn't really expect it. Anyway, so I approached my principal with this idea, and I had to spin the whole education bent. And she looked at me and she said, I'm getting ready to retire. I don't care what you do. And so that was the only way I was able to get my students to try this new program, was because my principal, God bless her, she didn't feel obligated to the district, and she could let a little bit of innovation happen because her job wouldn't be on the line. Well, long story short, my students loved it. And, the kids who are traditional learners and who, your smart kids in the classroom, they're not always the best listeners. And because they don't have to be, right? They have the skills where they can read, they can research, they can sort of handle things on their own. What I noticed is it was the kids who were more on the periphery, my students with ADHD, my dyslexic students, my autistic students, my students who had behavioral problems. Those were the kids who really, really, really needed to get out and burn off some extra energy during the day. And those were the kids who this walking, listening, and learning had really tapped into a style of learning that they didn't even know they had. So, those sort of outlier kids who really had not been active participants in the classroom before, they came back. And when we would discuss the podcast, they were the first to raise their hands. They were the first to offer insight. They were the first to really sort of process, what had the lesson that had been offered. And it was just wonderful to witness these students who, for the first time in their academic career, felt smart. But it was also wonderful to witness the smart kids realize that those kids were smart and that they had something to offer the class as well, but it's just that their preferred learning style had not been tapped into before. So that was the birth of the walking classroom. And we are now a award-winning, research-proven nonprofit program. We have, thousands of schools around the country that use the program, and we have, tens of thousands of students every single day walking, listening, and learning, and it's just wonderful. So I will tell you more about the program as we go through this webinar. If you do have any questions, please write them down and feel free to email them to me. This is a recorded webinar, so I cannot take questions as we go along, but I'm more than happy to help you answer anything you might have. Okay, I'm going to shrink myself down here, and then we're going to get on with the PowerPoint program. Okay, so walk, listen, and learn with the walking classroom. Okay, by the end of this presentation, you should understand how the walking classroom increases physical activity without sacrificing instructional time. It increases students' health literacy, it aligns with the state standards, it also incorporates social emotional learning, and as we talked about, it engages different learning styles. And if you're interested, at the end, I can point you in the direction of how to get the program. Okay, so some of the problems. Our students are big and they're getting bigger. Students have many different learning styles, and teachers simply don't have enough time or resources to engage the students as they would like and as the students need. And so we offer a solution, not the only solution, but a solution, the walking classroom. Students walk, listen, and learn. We're an award-winning nonprofit program that really capitalizes on the favorable link between exercise and cognitive function. Students listen to educational podcasts while they walk. Yep, it's that simple. I'm going to show you a quick video clip from a local news feature that shows the program in action.
It all starts with a few simple steps. An MP3 player with a social studies lesson via podcast, and you've got the walking classroom.
It's been really fun because we get to get out of the classroom and learn stuff that we haven't really learned.
With budgets being cut, very often students only get PE, once, maybe twice a week.
And so former teacher Laura Finn knew there was something more that could be done. Why not combine what students learn in the classroom with exercise?
You walk, but instead of sitting in a classroom, your brain gets more air and it helps you learn.
When we're inside the classroom, we have to sit there all day and do work. But when we go outside, we have fresh air and have energy to play.
Just to give you an idea of how successful this program is, researchers at Elon University started tracking the students' test scores before and after they started the program. In just 10 weeks, their scores shot up.
My kids have seen really good test scores, yeah. Social studies in particular, they've done really well because they listen to me, but they don't always listen to me the best, and when they get to hear it from another perspective.
By getting the students walking every day during school, we're trying to get them to establish healthy lifestyle habits early that they can carry forward with them as they grow older.
Good job, good job.
In Alamance County, Meg Smith, News 14, Carolina.
I love how the little girl says she enjoys the walking classroom because she doesn't have to sit inside and do work. And that's the best part. Students don't even realize how much they're benefiting from walking, listening, and learning. And we all know that exercise increases cognitive function. Just 20 minutes of walking oxygenates the brain and really, really primes it for learning. And so the walking classroom built upon that research. A program evaluation that was conducted by researchers at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill found that students who participated in the walking classroom had increased learning and retention. Teachers had been telling us for years about the positive impact of the walking classroom on their program, on their instruction, and it's just really wonderful to have this validation for that. The research also showed that walking increased student mood and classroom engagement. So the walking classroom is not just a cool idea. Study after study confirms the link between exercise and cognitive function. So students can look like this all day, or You can provide your students with some desperately needed fresh air and exercise without sacrificing instructional time. If it's raining or snowing outside, no problem. Students simply walk an indoor route around the perimeter of their school. Another benefit of the walking classroom is how it helps to narrow the achievement gap. Students who grow up in poverty often have the lowest academic achievement. Studies have shown that it's difficult to increase reading achievement in low-income schools because kids in poverty often do not have familiarity with much vocabulary, historical, or cultural references. By the time kids are 4 years old, children from low-income backgrounds have heard 32 million fewer words than their high-income peers. 32 million fewer words. And that gap continues to grow as children get older. It's difficult for students to infer and draw conclusions from texts that they read when they have significantly limited background knowledge. The good news is that kids can listen and understand 2 to 3 grade levels higher than their reading level. The walking classroom acts as a fun and engaging method of instruction that delivers expertly researched content in an engaging, kid-friendly way. Walking, listening, and learning is a way for struggling students to actively participate in grade level academic activity and be just as successful, if not more successful, than their more accomplished peers. And another great thing is that walking while listening to educational podcasts really does engage different learning styles. Like we talked about earlier, some students really struggle in a traditional classroom setting. They begin to hate school because they're being set up for failure every day. Kids need to move, and a lot of kids need to move so that they can learn. The walking classroom is a fun way to get some desperately needed fresh air and exercise without sacrificing instructional time. Listening to educational podcasts while they walk helps kids build background knowledge of topics so that they're more engaged in classroom instruction. The walking classroom helps build a bridge to historical and cultural background knowledge so that students who are at a deficit can really build their knowledge and become better readers. But the kids really just think it's fun. They think they're getting out of the classroom and out of doing work. They're interested and engaged because the academic content is accessible to them and allows them to feel smart. They actually enjoy learning and end up trying harder in other classroom areas. The addition of walking, listening, and learning during school brings joy to the students and engages different learning styles. Struggling students feel successful and motivated. Teachers regularly report that on walking classroom days, student attendance is 100%. So what do the kids listen to? Well, they have a lot of options. Each Walk-It contains 167 preloaded standards-aligned podcasts, some of which are shown here. Topics include social studies, science, language arts, and more. All podcasts are about 15 minutes long and come pre-loaded on the Walk-It. There is no uploading or downloading required. So much of the podcast formats are presented as a conversation among two students and their teacher. So students who are walking and listening are basically eavesdropping on the conversation of another group. So each podcast begins with a brief health literacy message, like the difference between a protein calorie or an empty calorie, the importance of sleep, why soda is not a great drink choice, example. So for example, one of the podcasts starts with a student saying, "Oh man, I don't know why I'm so hungry. I had 3 donuts for breakfast this morning." And then the other kid says, "You can't have 3 donuts for breakfast. You're going to make yourself sick." And then the teacher jumps in and quickly explains that a donut every now and again is fine, but too many will make you sick. And after a short review of empty calories versus healthy calories, the conversation pivots to whatever the main podcast topic is about. Throughout the podcast, there's also social emotional learning. So for example, a podcast about Langston Hughes offers discussion questions on perseverance. A podcast on idioms offers discussion questions about empathy. The podcast on the water cycle focuses on conservation. But none of these ideas are presented in a heavy-handed manner, and the discussion prompts and comprehension quizzes that are included with each podcast in the teacher's guide help review all of that. So here's what the Walk It looks like. It's super easy to use and very durable. It comes preloaded with all the content already on it, so there is no uploading or downloading, no Wi-Fi, no data needed, nothing. It is ready to go out of the box. The most off-task thing that your students can do with the equipment is listen to the wrong educational podcast. So just a quick review of the Walking Classroom. We are an evidence-based program. Significant research shows the undeniable correlation between exercise and cognitive function. The Walking Classroom increases physical activity. Students are active learners as they walk briskly for 20 to 30 minutes during each podcast. And the best part is that it's just walking. All students can be successful. It's not intimidating or embarrassing like trying to climb the rope or learn how to shoot a layup in PE. The program builds core content knowledge. Students listen to standards-aligned content through preloaded portable listening devices. The curriculum is heavily nonfiction with many science and social studies topics, as well as standard language arts topics like parts of speech, biographies, and poetry. The Walking Classroom encourages thoughtful discussion of character values. Character values are woven throughout each of the podcasts, and then the Teacher's Guide provides teachers with discussion prompts so that students can connect with what they learned in their own lives. The program increases health literacy. Each podcast begins with a different health literacy message we talked about earlier, like the importance of sleep and calories. The health literacy messages are presented in a kid-friendly manner, and teachers report a marked difference in students' awareness and choices regarding food, drinks, and behavior after implementing the Walking Classroom. And the Walking Classroom engages different learning styles. Believe it or not, sitting quietly in a chair for 6 hours a day is not the most effective learning style for many students. The Walking Classroom provides students who might struggle in a traditional setting an opportunity to be successful. And the program can be used throughout the entire school year. The Walking Classroom is not a one-time intervention like a school assembly on health. It's a program that is incorporated into the regular curriculum throughout the entire school year. If the weather is bad, kids just walk inside. And last but certainly not least, it brings joy back to the classroom. Students truly love the Walking Classroom and don't understand how much they're benefiting. They just think it's fun. Teachers regularly tell us that attendance is 100% on days when students do the Walking Classroom. This always makes me laugh. So on days with the Walking Classroom, students report feeling smart and excited and happy and healthy and good and educated and educational. And then on days when they don't do the Walking Classroom, students are mad, sad, bored, sleepy, frustrated. So the size of the word reflects how often students reported those words, and it was not from a choice. These were words that the students came up with themselves, and these were hundreds of students. And so it's just really funny that happy and excited and healthy are the main words that the students thought about the Walking Classroom, and then mad, sad, and bored were the overwhelming words that students chose of how they felt on days when they didn't use the Walking Classroom. We do offer significant resources and support for teachers. We offer free online training and professional development. The Teacher's Guide is available with lesson plans for each podcast, and those lesson plans include a synopsis of the podcast, the state standards that are met, vocabulary that is included within the podcast, discussion questions and answers, a comprehension quiz for each podcast. And then on our website, we offer video clips, PowerPoint decks, digital quizzes, and monthly adopter newsletters, all free to help teachers really have a thorough and successful implementation of the Walking Classroom. And we continue to add more resources. So please, that is a great resource to have. We encourage teachers, adopters to check that out. All right, so the nitty gritty. Tell me about the cost of this program. Okay, each audio player is $125. Teacher guides are $150. But the thing is, if you have if you have three fifth grade classrooms at your school, you don't need three sets of walking classroom materials. You can get one set of walking classroom materials, and those materials can easily be shared among those different classrooms. And then the walk-its can be reused year after year. So if you think about it, one classroom set, imagine, you can have your set be however large it needs to be. If you have a larger class, you get more. If you have a smaller class, you get fewer. But let's just say you have 30 students in your classroom. So 30 walk-its times 125, one teacher guide and shipping. So your total cost is $39.50. Just a reminder, that does include free online training and free customized professional development for however long you are using the program. Half our staff is former teachers, so we are more than happy to help you have a successful implementation, not just with the walking classroom, but also thinking about ways to incorporate physical activity into your classroom in ways that maybe don't use the walking classroom. So that sounds expensive, but if you think about it, $39.50 divided by 60 students per year. Divide that cost over the time span of 3 years, you're down to about $22 per student. If each student goes on 100 walks per year, you're down to 4 cents per walk. When you think about it, 4 cents per walk, and that leads to healthy habits for a lifetime. It's a bargain. We are here for you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call or reach out by email. I am Laura, and my email is laura@thewalkingclassroom.org. And then our office number is 919-240-7877. We are more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. And so I do appreciate your time. Thank you so much for checking in. And I hope that we hear from you soon. Thank you so much.